With Fat-Ass 45's positive COVID-19 test, it throws the market into a pre-election curveball. Investors were already skittish ahead of the U.S. elections in November, now have another thing to worry about: the Fat-Ass's health. News of Fat-Ass 45's positive coronavirus test on Friday had triggered a decline in oil prices and stock markets. U.S. equities had cut some of their losses um, by the end of the volatile session, as investors had digested the news and weighed the prospect that the lawmakers would agree on the long-awaited coronavirus relief bill before the election, which probably would never happen again. Well, where investors go from here could rest on how Fat Ass 45 copes with the disease that has killed more than 1 million people around the world, and more than 207,000 of them in the United States. This is a new uncertainty in a world which is mixed up already, which is not the best," said Chris Bailey, a European strategist at Raymond James. In the United States, the benchmark S&P 500 stock index, also known as the SPX, ended up being down about 1%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq IXIC dropped about 2%. MSCI's gouge of the stocks across the globe, something called MIWD, and then zero, or it looks like zero, like O, yeah, hold on, MIWD zero or PUS slipped about close to 1%, and oil prices fell more than 4%. Markets may have been somewhat soothed by news that Fat-Ass 45's opponent, that the former Vice President Joe Biden tested negative for the virus after the two men met for their first debate on Tuesday night. If you have two nominees both infected with COVID, that would really throw another huge uncertainty in the election and what happens next," said Keith Lerner, who's the chief market strategist at the Truist SunTrust Advisory. "We have never had something like that ever happen before. If Fat-Ass 45 symptoms continue to be mild, and he recovers quickly, which we hope he doesn't, the Republican squatter could use the experience to project his image as a fighter in the campaign against Biden. But the investors might be more alarmed if the 74-year-old gets very sick and has to be hospitalized, which just happened today, as the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was in this ring, or the virus spreads to other members of the Fat-Ass 45's administration. The news fueled the sense that investors are headed for a period of heightened volatility, with the most agreed that markets will remain on edge for the foreseeable future amid uncertainty over the path of the pandemic as well as the upcoming election. Um, the volatility gouges rise. Um, with the widely matched CBOE volatility index, also known as VIX, which edged up to 27.63 points from around 27 points on Thursday after rising to nearly 30 points earlier. The moves were nowhere near as large as during the depths of the market mayhem in March, but with only a month left before the election, Fat-Ass 45's news comes at a critical time. In a sign of concerns regarding the impact of his diagnosis, the gap between October VXVO and November VIX also VXXO futures narrowed. VIX futures reflect the volatility expectations in the 30 days following their expiration. So October futures have captured sentiment regarding the November 3rd election date, and currency markets, it implied volatility gouges for the yen over the next month rose to a 4-week high of 7.6 vols JPY 1MO equals, and then signaling more choppy trading ahead. David Arnold, a fixed income fund manager at Canada Life Assessment Management, said that he had positioned for uncertainty in the coming weeks by increasing exposure to safe haven assets such as the U.S. dollar, Japanese yen, and the U.S. Treasuries. While MUFG strategist said Fat-Ass 45's diagnosis could strengthen his argument of opening up the U.S. economy if he recovers quickly, some like SAXO Bank said that Biden's chances of a win had jumped a negative for risky assets. The news spread to betting markets. Betfair suspended betting on the outcome of the U.S. election on Friday, its website showed. Betfair had Biden's probability of winning at 60% on Wednesday after the first debate on Tuesday night. Investors who have driven a long rise in global equity markets were already nervous given the uncertain prospects for more U.S. fiscal stimulus and a brief sell-off in high-flying U.S. technology shares last month. Whether it's Fed 45 or Biden, the biggest problem is uncertainty. As long as we're uncertain about who will win the election, it's difficult for markets to truly settle, said Ayako Sara, who's a market strategist at Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank in Tokyo. Yep, so if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Ramvin Mike, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.